Our next presenter is Chip Henderson. He is an architect, graduated from the UT Austin with a Bachelor of Architecture, and is currently pursuing certification as a passive house consultant. A passive house consultant. He's a member of the American Institute of Architects and the Building Commissioning Association, also as a certified energy manager, that's a CEM, through the Association of Energy Engineers, and the LEED faculty with the U.S. Green Building Council. He is working with residential and commercial project teams to help identify and implement sustainable solutions for the built environment. Hard words for TV people to say. Please welcome Chip Henderson. Chip.
Thank you. Davey asked me where did I want to be in the lineup, and I said after the audience has consumed the maximum amount of beer and wine. As it turned out, she's just going to have me. She should have said I've inserted you after a whole list of other bad ideas. So thanks. All right. So hit enter. So with Irene is on the news, and this weekend happens to be the 6th anniversary of Katrina. So, and since we're doing a lot of work in New Orleans, it might be just kind of a good idea to refresh our memories. But Katrina was one of the costliest natural disasters in our history, both in terms of property loss at $81 billion and in human loss. There were over 1,800 lives lost, and mainly in the New Orleans area because of both the storm and the subsequent flooding. The previous slide was the lower 9th Ward, and the part that was blocked off was the lower 9th Ward. Brad Pitt got really sort of frustrated at the slow pace of the recovery, and working with Graft and Associates, the architects out of Los Angeles, did the Pink Project. Got the neighbors together and started working on how can we start bringing the lower 9th Ward back. And so Graft and Brad Pitt selected originally 13 architects, both local, national, and international, and that list is up to 21 at this point. So about this time, I enter the picture where, the Make It Right Foundation says, Chip, your job is to help make these projects more sustainable and more energy efficient. And the first thing, when I get these drawings, I'm thinking to myself, where was the adult supervision when these things were done? So as I'm trying to sort of model them, what I did is I take this great architecture and I imprint on it the highest technology Home Depot has to offer. And put, Home Depot air conditioning, Home Depot windows, and everything else. And they all performed at roughly 35% better than the current building code. The other thing I did is I started attending the neighborhood association meetings, and the neighbors that are coming back in this area, what they shared with me is the lower 9th Ward did not have that traditional, what we think of as New Orleans architecture. With only a couple of examples, it was mainly just shacks, but they owned the property. And so, I said, well, how do you feel about this architecture and this style? And they said, we now feel like our neighborhood has its own identity. And so after the first 6 houses that were put up, and there might be a small traditional Habitat for Humanity home. Well, these things really stood out, like, in your face. But now that there's 60 homes that have been finished, what's happened is now the small Habitat home is what looks out of place, because all of these things are built, this architecture is building on itself and actually creating a sense of place for these neighbors. And it's pretty, you know, it's amazing to watch. The foundation, you know, is struggling on, you know, how do we take high design and do it affordably? And the other thing is they've, you know, the foundation said, we're not going to assume one building system is better than another. Let's try to build one out of SIPs. Let's try to build one out of sticks, modular, and see what works best. I'm not sure this was what we nicknamed not to make it right, but make it float. This is a 4-foot thick piece of styrofoam that was designed to float when the lower Ninth Ward is underwater again. And this is it finished. This was done by Morphosis Architects. And I don't know that all new ideas were necessarily good ones. But it's really coming together. This roof structure forms a rainwater catchment at the top. One of the previous slides, you probably missed it. We were looking for a cost-effective way we could do rainwater catchment, and we needed something very cost-effective, and we stumbled upon a good deal for precast coffin vaults. They hold 300 gallons, they're waterproof, and what seemed appropriate is above-ground coffin vaults. Of course, we build them as, you know, rainwater harvesting tanks. This home, the builder was Mike Holmes, and you've probably seen him on TV. Homes on Homes was the builder. And across the street was a one-story version of the same home. Mike had his young bucks trying to do that architecture, and they all had their laptops on the scaffolding trying to calculate rafter lengths. There was a local group of carpenters building the similar house across the street. They just pulled a string and measured from the floor to the string. They got their house built 2 days faster than Mike did with his laptops. But it's working. You know, the neighbors, I mean, the community's coming back. Families are moving back. And we've got 60 houses complete of the vision of 150. And 6 more are going to break ground next month. President Obama not this site, but visited one of the housing authority projects that we're also working on that has a little more of a traditional architecture that James Harwick and Associates out of Dallas is doing. And this project is 10 city blocks, 600 apartments, and more of a traditional architecture. All of the parking for these apartments is inside the core of each block. So the streets, you know, the buildings are pushed up next to the street and very walkable. Okay.